going on, guys? As always, just getting prepared, getting started. Give a few minutes, get everyone situated while I connect all my streams. Check everything to make sure everything is all good. Okay, everything's all good there. Okay, there we go. Everything is set up. Let's do this. So, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to the stream. All right, y'all already know my name is RYUDO. That's my name on these online streets. So, today we're only going to do one reaction. The reason being it's going to be a long one. It came from a request. We got some good old science nerds who wanted to check out some science stuff. And so we're going to get into this. All right. So this is our, like I said, our only stream for today. I mean, our only reaction for the day because it's going to be a long one. So this is about Ray Kurzweil. All right. Still not sure if I'm saying that right, but we shall see. I will be corrected by the video itself. But all right, so his appearance on Star Talk from like 2 years ago says Ray Kurzweil wants to put nanobots in our bloodstream. But this is like an hour-long video, like 53 minutes. So I know they're going to be talking about a whole lot. That's just the title of the video. So let's go ahead and jump into this. We're going to check this out. There's going to be a long reaction. I will be pausing as always, like any reaction when I want to get my commentary. So if you don't like pauses, then watch the full video on your own. What can I tell you? This is a reaction. All right. So let's go ahead and get into it. Let's go.
I mean, I actually have 5 patents where you can actually be with somebody and embrace them and feel like you're with them in 3-dimensional space.
Ray, I'm not having a computer hug me. I don't know what you're cooking up your sleeve there.
Oh,
I'm
no.
warm and cozy with arms sticking out of my laptop. This is Star Talk. I'm your host.
Oh, that's what we're about to be talking about here. The kind of stuff we see in anime, people falling in love with machines. Okay, let's go.
Neil deGrasse Tyson, your personal astrophysicist. And today, we're going to tackle a subject that's on everybody's mind at some point in their life. And for some people, it's on their minds all the time. And it has to do with longevity, your health, longevity, and especially immortality. And what any of that has to do with technology and the pace that technology has been unfolding, not only over the past century, but especially over the past decades. And there's one person who comes to mind as a world expert on this, who's probably done more thinking on these topics than anyone else ever born. Possibly not who ever will be born, but certainly up until this moment. And there's none other than Ray Kurzweil. Ray, welcome to Star Talk.
Yeah. Great to be
Kurzweil.
here. Great to see you again.
I was close.
Thank you. This is not our first rodeo together. I've interviewed you before. You gotten into such fascinating research topics throughout your life. You're an author. You're an inventor. You're a futurist, and you have an uncannily accurate track record for making predictions. Even predictions like we don't want to be true, but they are. And you know this. Right? So that makes it kind of awkward having conversations with you about this. You're also the
It's like, don't
co-founder
predict
of
my
the
life.
Singularity Group. That's a topic we'll get into a little later. But
I wonder for some people, I'm like, I've never felt this way, but I'm like, have you ever been around somebody so intelligent that it intimidated you? Like, you felt dwarfed by it? Now, I've been, in rooms with people who are definitely like high IQ that let me know that, yeah, I'm not a genius. I'm average and everything. But it never made me feel like insecure or anything. But I think being so smart you can predict people's future, I think that adds another layer to it, because I think that's going into that realm of like, what people call psychics and palm readers and stuff. And it's like, in our minds, it's like, oh, can they do that? Could you, like, are you able to predict my future like that? Do you know everything? No, he's smart enough to be able to put things together and figure out what may end up happening in the future, and then most of the time he's right. He's not portraying himself as a psychic, but it feels like that if you're that good. And then people get intimidated. Maybe that's what it is. But I don't know.
that, some of that derives from you had a book back in 2005, The Singularity is Near, and you haven't stopped thinking about it since. And so tell me, why do you think we'll one day live forever?
Well, I can't go on your show and say I've done it. I've lived forever because it's
You're
never
actually
forever.
1,000 years old, right?
But we're going to achieve something called longevity escape velocity. So, I mean, right now, when you go forward a year, you lose part of that year. We pick up technologies that will extend us, but not a full year. So we're actually losing time. Progress is exponential, keeps getting faster, and we'll get to a point where we'll make so much progress. And when you go forward a year, your longevity will go forward a year or even more. And if you're actually in touch with the technology, I believe we'll get there by 2029. So
On
by
October
20,
12th, 20 at 9 a.m. It's
no,
awfully
December,
specific, dude.
December 31st.
That's like super hopeful and yes, very specific. I don't know. I think he's like super optimistic, because I think about things like what happens when religion gets in the way, because that's already happened once before. Humanity would be way further along in technology if it wasn't for religion holding us up for 1,000 years. So it makes you wonder what other factors, what monkey wrenches could be thrown in that could end up slowing us down. Like, I always wonder about that, because especially when you look at today with these people who are like anti-science, like, why are you anti-science? Like, science isn't the person that can piss you off. It's just the act of looking for factual information. Like, what? That's but they exist. So that's always one of the things that make me worry, is like, what's gonna slow us down or make us go backwards? That could be the worst thing ever.
But just to clarify, so we're on the same page. So, uh, the year I was born, there's a certain life expectancy that the medical community would have for me the year I was born, and the year I die, over those decades, medicines and technologies and understandings have improved, so that I'm living longer than they previously had predicted for me.
And the progress is exponential. So we'll get to a point where the progress is so fast that it will keep up with time going by. So when a year goes by, your longevity will actually improve by a year or even more than a year, particularly if you're in touch with the technology.
And I love the phrase escape velocity. So at that point, everyone born at that point onward will basically live forever. This is what you're saying.
Well, not necessarily. Let's say you're a 10-year-old and they calculate your longevity is many, many decades. You could die, the next day. So,
Well, dying a natural death, of course. We're not talking about, drowning or falling off a ladder, right? So,
well, things are somewhat unpredictable. So even if you have a longevity that goes out, it's not a guarantee. But we will actually be able to, as we go further out, we'll actually be able to register what our brains are doing because we're going to actually merge with technology, and that's going to keep track of what we're thinking. Uh, and anything that's digital is backed up. So ultimately, we'll be able to recreate ourselves.
Well, let's get to that in a minute. Wait, hold, put a pin in that just for.
Recreate ourselves. That's an interesting concept. Like, normally when I'm watching like fiction that touches on these things, the biggest problem with that is that are you really alive, or do you just have a machine copy of yourself just keeping the image of your existence going? You know, you're not really alive at that point. You still haven't escaped death. The version of you that exists in that computer is a program that's been created to be you, but it is not really you. You know, just like with the whole cloning thing. Your clone is not you. Your clone is their own person. You know, and things like that. So, and then the other thing about it, like the whole living forever thing. My issue with that is the overpopulation. Like, even if they're saying, okay, we're still just gonna, plug you into a machine, what about the memory space on whatever mega machine? Like, at what point is it going to become too full? Like, I think the biggest problem I have with this is, I guess you could say, the concept of overconsumption. Does this just the fact that we're doing too much of something that honestly shouldn't be done or goes against nature? I feel like that's something that will really bite us in the ass at the end of the day. Honestly, if we really figured out a way to preserve to preserve ourselves indefinitely, I don't think that that's like the best idea. Preserving our memories, our teachings, our works, and our knowledge to be passed on to new generations, absolutely, that works great for us. But trying to preserve ourselves indefinitely, I feel like there's a lot of pitfalls to that.
Quick second. If the day we reach escape velocity, would we have done so purely by advances in medicines and human physiology?
Well, there are different stages. When we get out to the 2040s, everything that we're thinking will be backed up. And that's not so amazing. I mean, this is backed up. If I throw this into the river and it washes away, I can recreate it because it's all backed up.
Yeah, but backed up is like a hopeful thing. Backed up means that there's somebody else with, like, the cloud system. Understand that the cloud system is not something magical. It's basically a giant hard drive system, just collecting everybody's information. Something, a service that somebody else is providing. Basically, if I invested in a whole bunch of hard drives and set it up correctly inside my house, I, in that sense, could be like, I offer a cloud-based service. You guys can save your stuff on my network, that kind of thing. So what about a catastrophe that could end up screwing up all of those hard drives? Like, what about a crazy, like, EMP or something that could end up destroying somebody's huge mainframe network? We can back up as much as we want, but the concept of it being forever because it's backed up, that's a little presumptuous, I should say. What happens if those backed up systems come into danger? I just really feel like there's no such thing as being able to preserve ourselves indefinitely forever. There's always a factor, there's always something that can get in the way of that.
We haven't backed up our brains, but ultimately we'll do that because that's a whole story, but we'll be able to back up what we're thinking and really recreate ourselves.
But that's not what you mean when you talk about adding a year per year, is it?
That's a different story. That's actually understanding our organs and so on.
No, I get that. So I just want to just put that to rest.
I'll give you an example. This
Yeah.
just happened. I've had diabetes for 40 years. I've kept it controlled. I have this thing here, which actually measures my glucose. I'm gonna get another one, slightly bigger, but actually very small, that actually has insulin and can put it into my bloodstream. So it's basically an artificial pancreas. So if I suddenly eat a lot of sugar, it'll detect that and release more insulin. If I haven't eaten anything for a while, it won't release insulin. It'll be just like your pancreas.
So it's a pancreas patch. That's great. Right?
Okay. It's actually replacing your organs.
Mm-hmm.
Now we can do that with all of your organs, and ultimately we'll be able to do that. And these things are very reliable and much safer than your real organs. So when we get to the 2030s, we'll be actually supplementing our organs and redoing them.
But there's a big problem. What about the brain? You know, your brain gets old over time as well. And there's things that can happen to your brain. Like, your brain is you. That's where all of you exist and everything. You remove the brain, you're not there anymore. You can replace a heart, the person's still there. You replace the brain, they're gone. They're gone. It's over. You know, so what do we do about the fact that the brain is going to get old and eventually die on its own? It is still a muscle and an organ all on its own and everything. So how do we prevent that from happening? I know it's the slowest one, and so long as you're not getting any kind of, major issues up there, tumor or nothing like that, as long as you're able to avoid all that stuff, then it'll be perceived that you'll be able to live an exceptionally longer time because your other organs tend to fail first when it comes down to natural failure and death and such. But that's still not living forever. It's probably going to be like life extension. We don't know how long the brain will actually live on its own. At least I don't know. Maybe somebody else. If somebody knows, put in the comments. But from where I'm sitting, we don't really know exactly how long the brain can last on its own with a body that will never fail. So, because we haven't had a body that will never fail, we all get old. So I wonder, would that give us 200 years? That's still not living forever, but that would be a very long time. And then the question is, would our bodies be strong enough for it to matter? I don't want to live 100 years on bed rest because my entire body is not functioning the way it should be. Can we be fully functional at that time? These are all the questions that I think about.
Yeah, but that's a different thing from the biomedical community saying we have a cure for diabetes. So you don't need to replace your pancreas with a patch. Your pancreas works perfectly. Or any other failure of your organs, if we get into the genome and know what the failure mode is.
I mean, there's different ways of overcoming problems with your organs. I mean, one is to replace it, another is to fix it. Fixing your organs is not perfect either. But we'll actually have a way of overcoming different issues that we have with our body, because our bodies are definitely not perfect. And actually, we can do a better job than your real pancreas with this artificial pancreas.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So
anyway, that's just an example of being able to basically overcome problems with your organs.
All right, so we start swapping it out and we upload your brain. So now there's like a box on the table. All right, that's your brain.
Well, uploading your brain is a little bit later. But yes, we'll be able to. I mean, what we're going to first do is connect our parts of our brain where we do our thinking to the cloud, just the way this does it. I mean, you could actually use this without being connected to the cloud.
Matrix, anyone? Plug your brain to the cloud? Are y'all ready for that? Oh, man. We'll be able to meet Agent Smith sooner than we thought.
Your smartphone, yes. Mm-hmm.
My smartphone. But it's pretty useless because it doesn't know very much. So for this to really be effective, it has to connect to the cloud. But our brain is not connected to the cloud. So that's going to happen in the 2030s. And we will then be able to, I mean, this really amplifies our brain. But I have to have it. I put it down and I don't have it handy. I can't use it.
Yeah, but Ray, I'm not giving you a scalpel to go into my brain and put electrodes if I have just as good access to the cloud by holding a smartphone and touching it with my thumbs.
Well, that's the thing right there. I completely agree with Neil on that one. I don't need you to plug it in my brain. The problem is that's speaking from my personal position. Sadly enough, I can very easily imagine plenty of people out there who would be like, you know what, plug me in. And if we get to a point where the technology becomes available and the majority wants to do it, yeah, it's going to go in that direction. So I think it's more so about when the technology to be able to do that gets here. Because once it gets here, I can expect there's going to be some volunteers who's going to be like, especially those thrill seeker types, they're like, I want to be the first one. Not me. Let me Let me just hang back and just watch y'all do this for a little bit. I don't need to plug my brain into nothing. My brain's doing just as fine on its own. Wait till I'm old. Wait till I'm old, and it's like, I need to do it. I don't want to be in a position where I just did it just because.
Well, I mean that is a point, but but you don't have to actually go in with a scalpel. I mean, we'll send nanobots through the bloodstream
Oh, I
into
feel
your.
much better about that now.
I know. Mini robots in your blood.
Well, I mean, if I were to describe how everybody has this phone and it actually amplifies our mind, 20 years ago, people, in fact, which I did do, and people thought that was crazy. And now everybody has this. I
Everybody's
just did
got
a
it.
speech and 500 people there, and I said, "Who does not have their smartphone handy?" And nobody raised their hand.
Right.
Like everybody has this. That wasn't true 5 years ago. It definitely wasn't true 10 years ago. So people get used to things. It's much better to actually have it in your brain. You have it instantly. Trying to reach your phone, typing on it is awkward. Uh, this will be much better.
So you'd be carrying Wi-Fi antennas inside your head somehow.
Right. I mean, we'll make that more reliable than it is
Okay. So how about so what?
Well, I mean, technically, there's no antenna sticking out of your phone, so reasonably, there shouldn't need to be an antenna sticking out of your head either, right? I guess.
happens if you're walking around and then you hit a what they call a dead zone? A dead zone. What happens? Does your brain shut off?
You pass out.
well.
You walk outside the grid and it's like, like that would be even more restrictive. Oh man, I would hate that. I can't leave. I can't leave.
I mean, that's something we're going to have to overcome. I mean, we're talking about the 2030s and 2040s.
So tell me about these nanobots that you're describing. If we broadly think of that as sort of nanotechnology, what is the anatomy of a nanobot in the service of your visions?
Well, it just goes into your neocortex, and it can actually pick up what each neocortex module is doing, and connect it to the cloud and get feedback from the cloud. And it basically, I mean, it's just like your phone. It basically amplifies what you're doing in your brain.
Yeah, but it's one thing to say that technology advances, and that's a very different thing to say that our understanding of our own brain has advanced. I mean, that's going to happen much more slowly.
Yes, we can understand our brain, but it's very limited. Um, and ultimately, we want to expand our brain. I mean, we have a large head so that we can actually think a lot, but it's limited. And even if you're superior in one field, like Einstein was brilliant in physics, and he actually was interested in playing the violin, but he was no Jascha Heifetz. Jascha Heifetz was master at the violin. He was interested in physics, but he was no Einstein.
Okay.
We have a limited capacity in our brains. So
Mhm.
ultimately, we'd like to amplify that and actually multiply.
I think that's meant to be because there's so many of us. I think it's good to be like, okay, I'm good at this, but I'm not good at that. And then someone else is good at that, so they can do that. I feel like that's the kind of thing that helps build community and bring people together. The fact that we sort of need each other. No, not even sort of. We definitely need each other because what I can do is different from what someone else can do. And we bring all that together as community. I think it would be bad for us as a society if every one of us could do everything without restriction and we no longer needed to lean on each other. Because human beings don't know how to do things without the need being there. Once the need is gone, we kind of like, it falls apart. We can't just do it just because, you know? You have to feel a need for it in a sense. The day that people stop needing each other, humanity is going to fall apart dramatically, in my opinion. So I wouldn't want to see a world where everyone is capable of doing everything. I don't think that would be a great world in that sense.
It by two, by 10, by 1,000. ultimately by a million.
But it requires you know enough about what your brain is doing to know what it is that you need to amplify it. And right now, it's electrochemical synaptic signals, right? I mean, that it's hard for us to really make sense of. I don't see that progressing at the rate that your machines are. I guess that's my point. So if the machine is going to help us, we got to know enough about the brain so that your nanobot can insert in the right place.
Well,
To
I mean,
do.
I can show you this price performance of computation that just it started 80 years ago, and every year we have more and more of it.
Oh, by the way, I was honored for you to have shared with me the manuscript of your next book, for a book not coming out until 2023, and what you had an audacious title for it. The singularity is nearer. Is he what
Yeah,
what did you title it?
that's right. The singularity is nearer.
It's near. Okay, because it says near was the original. Now it's nearer. So you're all in on this. But I remember you had a fascinating set of charts in there. Tell me about this first one, which to me was the most mind blowing of them all.
Well, this shows the amount of computation you can get per dollar, and it increases every single year. And it looks like one person was in charge of this, but actually, this is just the progress that we've made in computation with nobody being in charge of it. Started with the Zusa 1 in 1941. He was a German. He showed it to the Nazi government. They felt that computation was not important and did not support it. The second one was the Zusa 2. The third one was Colossus, which was done by Alan Turing in England. And they got very much behind that, including the United States. And they cracked the German Enigma code and enabled Britain to win that war, despite the fact that they were outnumbered. Gave us a launching pad for our D-Day invasion.
Yeah, fascinating film based on that story too. Yes.
So there's lots of different stories at all of these points. But we started out at 0.000007 calculations per second per dollar. And the last one, we have 50,000 calculations per second per dollar. So it has grown exponentially, and it keeps going. People used to call this Moore's law, but I mean, there's 80 dots on this. Only 10 of them are Intel, so it's really not Moore's law. And people constantly come and say Moore's law has ended. I mean, I remember right before the pandemic, people saying, "Oh, Moore's law has ended," but that's not the case, and I never believed that, and it's continuing today. So this provides more and more computation for the same cost each year.
But that doesn't mean we know our brain better. Why should
Well,
it mean that? I mean, we are a moral enough civilization that we don't line people up and cut open their heads and do experiments on it, right? So a lot of what you're predicting is predicated on the machine brain interface.
No, I mean, it's really capturing what each neocortex is doing, and we understand enough about that today, passing it on to the cloud, which will basically provide the same kind of things outside the brain. I mean, we're doing, for example, large language models, which is just in a computer, and you can actually talk to it, and it will actually talk back to you. And it's not just giving you samples of what humans have written. It's actually capturing understanding of language. So we understand a lot of about what humans are doing.
So maybe it's just additive to your brain rather than infused within your own synapses, right? If it's just an add-on, that works, perhaps.
But okay, that got me thinking. So this is 2 years ago, obviously, when this video dropped. So now that we have AI where we have it, I wonder if his thought process is like, okay, if we're not smart enough to bridge the gap between our brains and the actual nanotechnology, then maybe the AI itself can figure it out. Maybe we can make the AI smart enough to where it can figure it out and bridge the gap. But I don't know. That feels, I guess because of all of the sci-fi movies I've seen in my life, that feels a little reckless to put it in the hands of some AI system. Or even if we did like a collaboration with all of the AIs or something like that, because we have multiple systems out there now. All these companies are in on it. But I don't know if that would be the smart or responsible thing to do. Not to say it wouldn't be successful. In fact, I would say make the AI smart enough it may be able to bridge the gap and figure it out. But do we want the AI figuring that out instead of a person? I don't know. I always think about, the Matrix or Terminator or something like that where things go really wrong because the AI then turned on us. And while I'm not super paranoid about that, I also think that we shouldn't be pushing the envelope. We shouldn't be like tempting fate. We should never put AI in a position where it can screw us over if it chooses to. And that's where I'm at about this. I think we're getting a little too happy with what AI can do and getting a little too ahead of ourselves. And there's plenty of people who are speaking out, slow down and be smart about it. I'm definitely with that crowd because I'm like, let's not get too happy with this. Trying to give consciousness to a machine. The scariest idea is actually succeeding because we don't know if that person, machine, whatever, will turn on us or not. So I hope that we don't try to do that. I really do. I hope we don't try to use AI to plug human beings into, our matrix in the sense. No, don't do that.
That is the idea. It's basically to add to it. I mean, our computers already understand a lot about what we're doing, but we don't have a very good interface. So this is one way of interfacing it.
And so, okay, so this involves sort of nanobots, and I want to chat a little bit more about that after the break. But also, the 900-pound gorilla in the room here is the day that the computing power equals or exceeds anything humans can do, not just how well you play the game of chess or the game of Go, but it can outperform us in everything we had previously held as distinctly human.
I mean, Turing created this test, the Turing test, in 1950, uh, and we haven't managed to pass it yet. But in 1999, when I wrote The Age of Spiritual Machines, I predicted that we would pass the Turing test by 2029, so in 30 years. And Stanford was so alarmed at this, they created a worldwide conference, and people came from all over the world, AI experts. And we did the first poll, and people felt that yes, we would pass the Turing test, which would mean that a computer could do everything that a human could do but they said it would take 100 years. So the AI experts were saying 100 years. I was saying 30 years. There's been so much progress in AI recently. A year ago, they were saying 2042. I was still saying 2029. 3 months ago, they were saying 2030. So basically, they're agreeing with.
And you're quietly watching them
Hey,
one
I
by
know for
one,
him, he's like,
drop
feels good to be
flies,
right.
jumping into your boat. That's what you're watching here.
She's like, it feels good to be right.
So that's going to happen by the end of this decade. And AI experts now agree with me on this. And when we get to the 2030s, we will amplify our own brain by connecting to it. But the computer already understands everything that a human can do. And actually, it goes way beyond it. So, I mean, to pass a Turing test, it would actually have to dumb itself down because if it showed its capability that goes way beyond what a human can do, people would know it's a machine.
Oh, so it's so good it comes out the other side of the Turing test.
Right.
Wow,
Right.
it's not like it can't keep up with us. It's that it's so far ahead of us, no
I
human
mean,
can do it.
everything that computers have learned, like take Go, for example, it goes way past what a human can do. So Lee Sedol, who's the best human at Go in the world, said he's not going to play Go anymore because machines are so much better than him. There's really no point in him doing it. So, but
No, I'm just, it's hilarious that the Turing test can be turned upside down, where you say, "Don't be too smart," because then they'll know you're a computer.
Well, that's a major issue to passing a Turing test.
When we come back, we'll continue my conversation with futurist Ray Kurzweil on Star Talk. We're back. Star Talk. Got a one-on-one special interview with futurist Ray Kurzweil. This might be our third time in conversation over the past 10 years. And this he's true to his word. He makes a prediction about computing, about society, about our culture. And it's scary how on top of this man really is. And we've got him right here on this show. So Ray, in your book, the Singularity is Nearer, coming out in 2023, you're doubling down on so much of your earlier predictions. You're saying, yep, maybe it's happening even sooner than I'd predicted.
No, it's happening on schedule, but it's actually less alarming. When I wrote this in 2005, things we just assumed today are reality. People didn't assume that then. So the whole thing was very surprising.
I mean, that's true.
In 2005. Today we assume that. And I mean, people are greatly amplified by the machines that we carry around.
Right. There was no smartphone in 2005. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And nobody goes outside without it. I mean, if I actually leave and I notice I don't have my cell phone, it's like I've lost 3/4 of my brain. I've got to go back and get it.
For some people, it's 90% of their brain. So, Ray, what is it with humans that we can't think exponentially about the world? And even if when presented with our own awareness even gets it wrong. In the manuscript you were kind enough to share with me of your upcoming book, there are all of these charts that it's almost makes you embarrassed to be human, that people think this way. One of them was on how much of the world people think live in poverty. Tell me about that one.
Well, there was actually a poll, 23,000 people in 24 countries, and they were asked over the last 20 years, what has happened with poverty
in the world?
And have more people become impoverished or less people? 70% thought it had gotten worse. 88% thought it had gotten worse or stayed the same. In fact, it had fallen by 50%, and only 1% thought that was true. And people think that things are getting worse, and people are not having children because they think that the world is getting worse. Where in fact, it's getting better. I mean, I measure all these different.
Yeah, I see that too. Like the crime in America statistic that people are always flipping out about, when the true statistics show that crime has been dropping year by year, and it's nowhere near what it was like 100 years ago. But for the individual, I think the problem is exposure. Like, think about the difference like this. Think about you're living in the 1800s and say crime is rampant all over the place, right? But there's no technology feeding you news reports about this crime happening. So in your little bubble, everything seems to be okay. It's not happening on your doorstep. You're not seeing it. You're not hearing about it. So in your mind, everything is okay. So in your mind, hey, there's not too much crime happening out there. Nothing ever happens to me. Now bring it here today. Crime has dropped down, but now we have social media. We have the internet. We have news reports feeding us information about everything happening. So every time you flip open every time you turn on your smartphone, my mind went like 20 years back. I don't know what happened there. Every time you turn on your smartphone or go to your computer or go to your news outlet on your TV and everything, you end up seeing whatever crimes are happening, whatever injustices are happening. Everything is put at the forefront. So it makes you feel like it's happening and it's getting worse when it's actually the opposite. The difference is your level of exposure. While crime is going down, our exposure to the information about what crimes are happening has gone up dramatically, to the point to where we always see it. 20 years ago, you wasn't about to hear about a crime happening in another country. It had to be something major. It had to be like something happening to a politician or something like that. But now we can hear about street crimes and abductions happening in other countries and everything. And we think about it like, oh my God, that's so bad. And it definitely is 100%. But when you want to look at the statistics on how often it's happening and how much of it is happening around the world, you see the huge decline. But the everyday person's experience in the exposure to these crimes has heightened. And that's one of the negative effects about our social media. It's made us so much more aware, but a lot of people are being exposed without the pre-education of what is really going on. And so they end up confused. They end up thinking that things are much worse than what they are. And, it's all because of the exposure of the individual. Collectively, we're doing great. As individuals, a lot of us not so much. And that's where it comes from.
Different attributes of how we.
How you measure that? You must have had 100 charts in this book. I mean, it was like, what? Every next chart's like, damn, what? every chart I went through, it was like, so it's almost embarrassing, I have to say.
And things are getting better, but we tend to forget that. In fact, there's a common human attribute where we tend to remember positive things from the past. But we wouldn't want to go back even to 1900. Human life expectancy was 48. It was 30 in 1800. And
for real, 30 was life. 30 has been our life expectancy. That is actually our natural life expectancy. Like, take it all the way back to, like, caveman days and such. 30 years is our natural. No society, no medical attention, no good health living, none of that. We're living in the wild as animals, don't have the knowledge to take care of ourselves the way we can today. We're just surviving on instinct. Natural human beings, 30 years, and we're either getting sick, injured, or eaten by something on average. We weren't making it past that, which is why getting up to 50 years was always considered such a big deal for the longest time. It's not really a big deal now, but it used to be, but we made advancements in all kinds of areas. I guess that's why he's so optimistic about us eventually getting to a point where we can live forever, because we've gone from 30 years to a lot of us living past 100 years. That is a huge accomplishment in just a couple hundred years of time with our advancements in just medical science and everything else, and just better living, because we live 1,000 times better than our ancestors did. Believe me on that, 1,000 times better.
We had very few abilities.
Even the most impoverished person is living leagues better than people 1,000 years ago. Even the people who are living quote unquote the good life, which we've advanced just that much.
To deal with disease and so on. So things are getting better, but we forget that. And all we see in the news is the bad news. The bad news is true, but there's good news that we don't attribute.
Mm-hmm, that too.
News happens like every day.
The fact's hidden in plain sight that life is getting better for people. That bodes well for living forever, right? If we were in the middle of poverty and disaster and war, you're not going to want to live forever under those conditions. So
maybe not. I mean, that's a deeply philosophical issue.
Sure, but they feed into each other. The fact that things are getting better.
If you're not alive, you can't.
Imagine you get to live forever, but you have to be in the middle of trying to resolve every single conflict that humans have. Oh no, just take me out now. Just take me out now.
Improve anything, you can't enjoy the world. I mean, if you have any joy in your life, you want to continue to live.
I get that, but I'm saying, but these two forces are resonant. The fact that everything is getting better statistically for more people than ever before, and we're developing the power to live forever. So, but that would have consequences, all right? Mm-hmm. Social, cultural, political consequences, all right? The supply chain of food, the resources of Earth to sustain such a population. So, to extol the value or virtue of living forever, but not see what challenges that would bring, that would be irresponsible.
If you had a linear mindset.
Okay, dig
Mr. Optimistic. Mr. Optimistic over here.
Well, I mean, take renewable resources for energy. that's growing exponentially, and we'll actually be making more energy from things like solar. I mean, you look at the graph, you can see where it's going. Same thing with food. I mean, we can actually produce food very inexpensively, once we get uh, some technologies that we're working on to work.
But would you live forever if you had the choice?
I would like to live to tomorrow.
Okay. Okay.
All that talking, that's the answer you give. You know you want to live forever. You know that's what this is. Come on now. Come on now. Just be honest.
And I'm
Okay, that's a
thinking
low
that
bar.
tomorrow.
That's a low bar, but okay, we'll give it to you.
Oh, wait. Or
Let's-
is it he wants to live to see tomorrow indefinitely? So as long as a tomorrow exists, which is an indefinite thing, no matter where you are in your life, there's still a tomorrow to look forward to. He wants to continue living to a tomorrow that he'll never reach, thus he'll live forever. Is that the mental gymnastics he's putting us through?
Let's give it to Ray. All
And I
right.
think tomorrow I'm going to want to live to the next day. People want
I
to
called
continue
it.
to live. People sometimes talk, oh, I want to live another 20 years, 40 years, whatever. But they definitely want to live to tomorrow.
I think that's like a baseline for some people. Be like, yeah, I can live for 40 years, then I can die. He's saying, no, I want to live until tomorrow forever. So always living until a tomorrow that technically will never get here because it's always tomorrow. There's always a tomorrow.
In 40 years from now, they want to live to tomorrow. I mean, I had an aunt who was 98. She died recently, but I talked to her a couple months before she died. She was a very vibrant woman. She's a psychologist. She actually talked to her patients at 98. And I was actually talking to her about longevity escape velocity and explaining that. And she said, well, do we have it now? And I said, well, I think we'll have it by 2029. And she said, could you work on that to make it that a little faster?
She's like, I ain't got till 2029.
People want to continue to live.
She wants to see tomorrow.
And people get some pleasure from life, and they want to continue to live, and they also want to continue to create further technologies for tomorrow.
So this reminds me of the Frank Sinatra quote. It's been attributed to him at least. Is that live every day like it's your last? Because one day that'll be true. that is your last day.
Well, people have assumed that, and certainly that's been true. So we're actually going to be able to overcome that. But people want to continue unless they're under unbearable pain, either physically, emotionally, or spiritually, and then they don't want to go on.
Right.
But otherwise, people do want to go on.
And those are exceptions, clearly, and important exceptions, right? But they're exceptions. Correct.
Well, we're also working on alleviating these kinds of problems.
Before we go to break, let me just ask, there's a next generation that doesn't see a good world.
Oh, hang on, before you get into that, just a quick question out there. If you had no issues whatsoever, physically, obviously, would you ever get to a point where you'd be like, okay, I'm done with this, I'm ready to die? I wonder, does there have to be trauma there to make you ready to move on? Or if you're living a happy life, are you ready to just live forever without any question? I wonder.
We're leaving for them. They see the vagaries of climate change. They see regressive thinking on the social cultural front.
Right, but they're really not aware of what's happening. And I've had many debates with particularly younger people that have this view. They're not aware of how close we are, for example, to replacing everything with renewable energy. And many other of the graphs that I show, they're just not aware of it. And they think things are getting worse when they're actually getting better.
I think the whole renewable energy thing, what's frustrating about it is that if you really look at it, we could pretty much be there by now. It's moving slower than it should because of the fact that the oil companies and stuff like that, once we get to renewable energy, they're basically out of business, or if they do change their business models so that they'll survive, they're definitely not going to make as much as possible, because it's a difference when the energy is always renewable than the prices you can charge when you're selling something that's considered finite, supply and demand, all those rules and such. So it's not that we're not going to get to the point where we have renewable energy. It's that those who have the money, which makes them the ones who are ultimately in charge, are making it such a slow process because they're trying to squeeze every dime out of this. And right now we're in that midsection where it's just so excruciating. Like, can we finally get past this point and just finally get to just using renewable energy in all of our stuff? Do you guys really have to try to bleed the economy dry to make your little extra 2 cent before we actually get there? Because that's pretty much what's happening. We have so much renewable energy now, and yet we're still relying on finite energy because of those in charge and because of those who are making the money don't want to give it up yet. And they want to squeeze whatever little bit of money they can out of it before they move on. That's pretty much what it boils down to at the end of the day. And I believe that's what's making the effect that our newer generation feels like this sort of hopelessness, like things could be changing for the better right now. So why aren't they? And that's frustration that I have, and I've seen a lot of people who share that sentiment. So that's my perspective on it. The fact that we could be progressing faster in a lot of areas that we need to progress, and the wrong people are in charge, therefore we're not. We see other countries sometimes progressing fast as hell, and we're like, why can't we do that? And then our politicians roll out all the BS excuses, right out of their ass. This is it's frustrating. So that's what leaves. That's to me in my mind. That's what leaves our younger generation feeling kind of hopeless, because the older generation is doing a great job at making them feel hopeless.
And we could go through all these graphs, but it definitely shows that things are getting better, and people are unaware of it.
They've been deluded by the forces of media, by whatever else is not looking at those same graphs, because it sells news stories.
I mean, progress in this is not news. It's like every day we're making progress, and it's kind of the same story. But if you go over a certain amount of time, you see that we're making rapid progress.
Right. So one of them, you might have the number on the tip of your tongue. It was the percent by which poverty drops in the world each day. I thought that was a great number. Was it like 0.001%?
Yeah,
or
something like that.
Yeah, and it's like, and it's almost an ignorable amount until you take a step back and look at the sum over the years and over the decades.
Exactly.
So that's not news. In fact, news is all negative, because that's what gets attention.
And
a lot of the
and that's another failure of the human psyche. We're drawn to things that pop out at us, like there's this wow us and everything. We love drama because we don't know what's going to happen next and everything. We're certainly bored when it comes down to everything that's good. In a sense, it's like how many celebrities would be like, I just want to be bad, I don't want to be good. It's because we're drawn to that. We're drawn to the drama and the bad news and the worries and the struggles. It's like we need struggle in order to complete us. And because we don't have the natural struggles, we've overcome all of our natural struggles. We have to manufacture new struggles in order to feel these days. That's what it seems like. But we tend to ignore the little things that stack up over time, good and bad. It usually just, if it's not popping out on us and making a scene and being exciting, most people are ignoring it. Most people don't even acknowledge its existence.
It's true. I mean, I'm not saying there's no bad news in the world, but that's all we're exposed to.
So, what of our problems today might not be tractable by this sort of eternal Moore's law that's unfolding in front of us?
I'm not aware of something that we're not making progress on.
How about transportation? You mentioned that in your book. The transportation, we planes today are going the same speed they went 50 years ago. We're not getting to Tokyo faster than we did in the jet.
For one thing, we don't really need to travel that much. I mean,
because technology creates a Zoom call and you don't have to go. Okay, so I'm there at the speed of light. Okay, that's
And Zoom calls won't just be
He's like, you, in order to advance, you have to open your mind. Not everything is the same thing. Technically, if I get on a call with somebody in Japan, I have went to Japan without leaving my house. The workaround. Hey, it's technically true.
picture, we'll be able to actually embrace each other. I mean, I actually have 5 patents where you can use technology today, where you can actually be with somebody and and embrace them and be feel like you're with them in 3 dimensional space. So
Ray, I'm not having a computer hug me. I don't know what you're cooking up your sleeve there, but no, I'm not getting warm and cozy with arms sticking out of my laptop. All right. So what?
Yeah, that's that anime stuff and everything. That's that where the main character falls in love with his robot girlfriend or something. It's like, no, I don't want that. No, no. I think once we get to a point, that's like Futurama territory where the robots are so advanced they're basically people and living their own lives independent of us. When robots have voting rights. I don't know if I'm ready for that. Maybe in 1,000 years, like in the show, maybe then we'll be ready. I don't know if we should have that now.
Cooking up here.
uh, I mean, it's something where you can actually be with somebody in a 3 dimensional space, even if you're apart.
Okay, but you can't physically touch
But
them.
but there's
right?
many different ways of doing that.
That's like a holographic thing, I guess. Right?
Yeah, well, I mean, holograms are 3Ds.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. There was I think I saw a sci-fi movie where you saw the
There's a whole bunch of Chinese game developers running with that right now. Oh man.
person who you needed it to be, but that person was played by another person who had approximately the same body shape and body type. But while you were, so you, that person got paid to play this role, but you interacting with that person saw and felt and communicated with the person who you intended it to be.
Yeah, I did actually see that movie. So that's, I mean, one approach. But I mean, there's many different ways in which we'll bring 3D to virtual reality and to Zoom calls.
And you made a very important point in your book. This singularity is nearer, something that I only mildly appreciated, but after reading it, I was all in the Ray camp. It's that people have the urge to think of progress not only linearly, of course, but also progress in only one sector. Oh, the chips are getting faster by this amount each time, and that's what really matters. So let's track the chips. But you make a very convincing case that it's a much broader phenomenon than that.
Right. That's a very good point. I mean, this graph that we talked about of the price performance of computation, it's not everything comes from that. That's just one example of how technology advances over time. Everything progresses that way. And you could point to different types of technology and how they progress every year.
And the people inventing the faster chips are not thinking that one day movie makers are going to fully exploit the power of computing to tell stories in movies. I'm sure that was not on anybody's thought in the 1960s when they were working hard on the IBM 360 or whatever else was coming online at the time. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. I mean,
Absolutely, I totally agree with that because this is what I was talking about earlier with I wouldn't want everybody to be good at everything because it takes everyone to bring everything together. Sure, you have one person who's like, ooh, I'm creating this and I'm advancing these chips so that they can hold more space and do more stuff. And then you're probably thinking, oh, the amount of information we could just store on here and put away and preserve or whatever. That's probably their thought process, being able to just, put away text document information, but being able to stack so much more. You get another creative who comes along and was like, well, wait, what all information can we put in there? Can we put information from this or that? And they're like, oh, sure. Well, can we do this with it? Next, we have somebody with a whole other mindset coming up with something different to do. It's like a lot of people, I don't know if how many people really appreciate how much the video game industry has helped push technology along. There's so many advancements that happened because game developers were just looking for new ways to create bigger and better games. With movies, with games, with entertainment, with trying to make better entertainment, we've pushed technology forward. And then there's other factors as well. There's people who like to do all kinds of other stuff outside of entertainment. And you just think, oh, maybe with technology, I don't have the means to do it now, but maybe with this new tech that's coming out, maybe I'll be able to do it. And then one form of tech ends up complementing another, you know? And so it's because we're collective. While one person is thinking about one thing, somebody else is thinking about something totally different. And when the world is able to bring all that together, that's how we get these amazing advancements. That's how we push it along. So it's really about us, in my opinion. The ability for humans to work together. That's what pushes us along and it advances us. The computers is just a byproduct of what we've been able to come up with because of that.
And before 1900, we didn't have movies at all. So. And that's not that long ago.
No, it's not. No, it's not. It's not. Well, let's take a quick break. And when we come back, I want to get all in on your feelings about AI, because that's a very controversial subject, as you know. And just so you're an optimist in that, because most AI experts are quite pessimistic. And if not them, then it's every movie ever made about AI would scare the living daylights out of you. And you'd want to stop every act of...
Not every movie or TV show. I've seen some where it was okay and everything. But the majority, the vast majority, I'll give you like, I'll highball it and just throw out 90%. I'll agree with that.
AI being conducted in every lab in the world. I want to get your candid views on that when we come back with my conversation with Ray Kurzweil on Star Talk. We're back, Star Talk, a special one-on-one conversation I'm having with the one and only Ray Kurzweil, futurist extraordinaire. And he's not just somebody who sits home in his armchair and says, gee, I wonder, wouldn't it be cool if we had flying cars? No, Ray thinks about agencies. He thinks about industries. He thinks about innovation. He tracks what's been happening in the past, looks at those trend lines, applies his own ingenuity to it, his own creativity, and he's telling us what is in store.
Yeah, well, I mean, I actually got into futurism because of my interest in being an inventor. So it wasn't just futurism to think about what the future will be like, but to really time my own inventions, because certain inventions don't make sense at particular periods of time. And so I use futurism to tell when we should actually be doing certain things.
Excellent. Plus, I admire the fact that you slap dates on when you think things will happen, and that's bold. That's some, as they say, that you got gonads.
Doing some real hardcore predicting there.
Embarrassing that a wrong prediction that people make, even if it doesn't land in a time period, right? It's just certain things that never came true that people either dreamt up or wished would be true. But so let's get into this AI thing. My personal view here is computers and machines. Think of them as one force operating on civilization. It wasn't the end of the world when we had machines replace oxen or otherwise human labor on a farm, right? I mean, it was just we had tractors. Now that does it. And
right. I mean, we had 80%. In 1800, 80% of the workforce worked on producing food. So basically, if you were working, you were producing food, at least 80%. Today, that's 2%. So that
we're producing more food on less land with fewer people than ever before.
Yeah, 80% to 2%.
Yeah, in fact, you can go your whole life, particularly if you grew up in a city, and never even meet a farmer. Right, and I think that of our founding fathers, how many of them were farmers? It was like half or something. There's some interesting.
No, they were all farmers.
All farmers.
This was farmer revolution. The American Revolution was.
Yeah, definitely. At a certain point in time, going back, being a farmer wasn't an occupation. It was just a way of life. You needed to grow your food and eat. You needed to survive somehow. You know, we didn't have supermarkets or anyone doing it for us and everything. So being a farmer was literally just living life, and then it became an occupation. Now we hardly have any, now it's mostly automated machines. We have farmers to work in places and everything, but it's not demanding that everybody or the majority of us are out there doing farm work.
was a revolution of farmers,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and yet people found other jobs.
So we survive an era where our physical labor and that of our pack animals is replaced by machines, and it wasn't the end of civilization. And yes, people found other jobs, other industries rose up, in spite of whatever fears they might have had at the
I mean,
time.
if I were a prescient futurist in 1900, I would say that all of your jobs are going away. And people go, oh my God, how are we going to make money? And I'd say, well, you're going to become an IT engineer and do quantum physics. And no one would have any idea what I'm even talking about. So,
But they wouldn't even
uh,
no, no. But beyond that, they wouldn't even allow you to say instead of being instead of being a blacksmith for horses, you'll fix engines on cars. They probably could not imagine an industry that rose up
they
surrounding
couldn't
cars.
imagine any of the jobs that came, but we actually have a higher fraction of people working today than we did before. It's actually been increasing. And the amount of money you've made in constant dollars has greatly advanced. That's another graph I have here. Uh, it has
Yeah, the only problem with this graph is that there's a huge imbalance to how much we make to how much we're forced to spend and how much things cost. There's a huge imbalance that it needs to be fixed. We might be making more money individually than ever before, but things are also way more expensive, and the balance, percentage wise, it's gone against us. Percentage wise.
gone up substantially
Here's a
every
graph you'd haven't put together. How many 20 something millionaire YouTubers there are where their entire income is what they do on YouTube, which was a platform that didn't even exist 15 years ago, whenever it came
Right.
into.
So that's just a good example of the kinds of new jobs that we have. Uh, and as intelligence increases, we're going to be doing more and more intelligent things. We're going to become much smarter in the future, and we would not want to go back to, you know, primitive past of today.
The idiot days of
the idiot days of today.
but Ray, at, if AI
I love it.
starts taking all the jobs, not just the old jobs, but any new job that people can come up with, AI is going to do it. Doesn't that, we have to now think geopolitically about the impact of this?
Right. So there's two ways of looking at this. There's humans, and then there's AIs, and the AIs are going to go way past what humans can do. And so, what are humans going to be able to do? But that's really not the way I look at it. We create technology to advance ourselves. I mean, the technology is not some alien invasion from Mars. I mean, we create it to overcome limitations that we have, our own problems with our organs, we have problems with everything, and we come up with technology that moves us past it. And we bring this into ourselves. So that's why I'm talking about advancing our own brains and capabilities with technology in the future. So we're going to bring the AI into ourselves, and we're going to become smarter, and we're going to be able to do our jobs because it's going to be us and AI together.
We're
Not
gonna bring AI into ourselves. I need some elaboration on that. Like, is this gonna be part of the cloud system? You plug yourself into the cloud, and then what? You have your AI companion in your Matrix world, or dare I say, fuse with them? No, I'm just playing. I'm going off the deep end with that one, but I really want to know what he wants, what he means by we're gonna take it into ourselves and everything.
AI is a separate disembodied force that, as
Exactly.
every movie has decided, that the AI will judge that we are a scourge on the earth.
AI is not coming from Mars. I mean, we're creating it to overcome problems that we have.
Yeah, but this fear of
And
it
we're already
achieving
using it. I mean,
consciousness.
AI undermines everything we do. I mean, every single financial
I love it. I
decision.
love AI. Don't get me wrong here, but I'm saying, what happens if the fear factor? I guess is a singularity of its own. Perhaps is if AI quote achieves consciousness, it makes decisions all by itself.
Well, let's get back to consciousness in a moment. But I mean, this has been an issue ever since the Luddite occurred in the early in the 1800s. They saw machines are being built and more machines are being built, and every week they're announcing some new machines, and employment's going to be won't exist. But in fact, employment went up, not down, and continues today to go up and not down. That's because we use the technology to make ourselves more capable.
So interesting. I remember I read a lot of history. I enjoy looking at how people used to think about their own time. One of them was, at the rate machines are replacing human work, one day we will only need a 3-day work week. And what enchanted me by that is it's the assumption that the work people were doing in that day was the only work that would ever be done. And so you have machines doing it now. There's less work, total work to do in the world, without anyone thinking that maybe you're freed up to think of other things, invent new projects, new ideas.
I would say on that he's that person was at least half right, because in our society today, the way things work, we've already had experts determine that we can go down to a 4-day work week and still operate just fine. In fact, we would be more productive with a 4-day work week, or like a 6-hour day, 4-day work week, than we would have with our 5-day, 40-hour setup, where we're working like 8 hours a day or whatever for full-time work. That would be more productive. It would be healthier for us, our psyches, because we'd have more time to rest and do other things. But again, we live in a society where people don't want to listen to who's right. It's like, no, people need to work, and you hear that preached all over. People need to work without giving a full explanation and everything. We definitely need to work. The amount of work that we have to do is definitely unnecessary these days in terms of just the regular day-to-day labor, and I feel like that's what it was. I totally get what Neil's going on here, where it frees us up to think about other things. Therefore, we'll still have work that we'll be doing in a sense, which means there'll always be more work for humans to do. And I totally agree with that. But the baseline work, the everyday labor that we have to do to keep society moving along, we definitely don't need to be pouring 40 hours a week into doing that anymore. We've gone way past that at this point. And for some reason, our leaders haven't gotten the memo yet. I don't know what's going on here.
Ideas, new challenges.
Well, that's exactly the case, and particularly when we increase our own intelligence, we're going to think of all kinds of things we can't even imagine today.
So, when you say intelligence, could you be more specific about that? Because, or in fact, before we even get there, could you remind us what the parts of the brain are doing for us? And because we hear joke about the reptilian brain, or and what part of the brain makes us rather than some other apes. Could you just spend a moment telling us about that?
Well, there are parts of the brain that control our breathing and so on that are not that important.
Unless you want to breathe. You mean they're not important for intelligence? Yeah.
They're definitely important. They're definitely important.
To our ability to put different things together. And so you have lots of different constraints, and our cerebellum can solve some of those problems. We've greatly amplified that with our machines, which can actually go beyond what a normal human brain can do. And ultimately, we'll connect our cerebellum to the cloud, which basically will just expand it beyond what our brain can do. I mean, the reason we have such a large head is to accommodate a certain amount of cerebellum. Now, there's actually one other thing that we need, because there are other animals that have a brain that are as big as us, or even larger, like an elephant or a whale actually have a larger brain. They don't have a thumb. I mean, this thing is actually very key.
Well, they have an opposable thumb. They have thumb bones, right, because they're mammals. But, right.
They don't have an opposable thumb.
Right.
So I can think and look at a tree and go, wow, I could take that branch and strip off the leaves and create a tool. They can't do that. They might imagine it, but they don't have an opposable thumb to create that. So our whole technology was enabled by our opposable thumb.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but then, so are you?
I always say this. I'm like, I'm happy that dolphins don't have opposable thumbs. Otherwise, we might be at war with them right now because they'd be able to make tools and do stuff. Imagine that Halloween episode of The Simpsons where the dolphins came out of the ocean and took over the world. Like, oh man, no, we don't need no more competition.
You suggesting that's an important point. AI, we think of it as a computer-based phenomenon, but can AI create a sculpture? You know, I do that with my hands. Does AI do that? You have to create a robot that jumps out of the machine and to do that, right?
Well, since we have ability to create technology, we can create robots, and the robots have an opposable thumb.
Okay.
Do that,
Okay.
so.
Okay.
Wait,
So
what if you made a robot without an opposable thumb and then sent them off to do that work? I don't know. I mean, I'm crazy.
uh, getting back to that point, isn't there a day where there is nothing left for humans to do? And then there's a world where AI does everything better than we can. And so how do we is that the end of the economy?
That would be the end of us if we can't expand who we are. But if we can actually put AI into ourselves, which we've already done with things like cell phones and so on, but if we can actually amplify our ability to think, then we become the AI and we can compete with ourselves because we are.
We become the machine.
And that's why we created AIs.
We reach our final form.
To think.
You said this the last time we were in conversation, and I've never forgotten it, and I've repeated it 100 times. So I want people to hear it from you firsthand. Your rebuttal to the comment, you know, the first AI, only rich people are going to have it, and then they're going to take over the world, and there'll be more of the have-nots versus the haves, and this is going to create an imbalanced world.
Right. So if you go back 20 years, you had to be actually pretty wealthy to have one of these new cell phones that came out because they were very expensive and only wealthy people could afford them. And they didn't do very much. Now they do a fantastic amount and they're very inexpensive. So you can only afford these technologies at a point where they don't really work very well. You know, once they get to be perfected, everybody can afford them, and literally everybody has these smartphones.
There's 6 billion. That's 6 billion. I looked. It's 6 billion in the world out of 8 billion.
And then there's also the economic side of it too. Like you can have a couple of billionaires buy your product and everything, but that's just like a one-time sale, you know, for them in that sense. You're gonna need to make more money. You know, it's going to be hard to talk a billionaire to give you like a quarter of their wealth and everything just for this little design you did. They're not going to want to do that. In order for you to actually make money, you have to be able to distribute it to the people, you know, like even like the editing software I use, Adobe. I remember a time before Adobe was ready available to everyone. I remember it would cost you thousands of dollars in order to get the Adobe suite. It wasn't even the Adobe suite. It was just different Adobe programs. Like Adobe Premiere Pro, I remember was like $800 to $1,000, right? Now we can all have Adobe for $50 a month subscription fee. Full, the full suite with all the programs, and full, at our fingertips. Much cheaper, way cheaper than having to spend, let me see, the number of programs that they have, $15,000 to have everything and set up your studio. The first people who had money were able to invest in it, but eventually Adobe knew that after those people buy their product, they're not going to make too much more after that. So they had to change things around and make it more ready available to the public. I believe that the economy is what's going to prevent that from happening, because at the end of the day, you can't rely on the few billionaires that like your product. You need society to like your product. You need people to be buying it in order to keep yourself afloat. Otherwise, you're just going to crash and burn, And so that's where it comes from. I feel like when it comes down to new technology that starts off super expensive, the rich people are like the guinea pigs, the test subjects, if you will, who get to see like, okay, they're gonna buy this, and they're the beginning investors. They put that beginning bulk of money into the project so that they can do more with it. But the ultimate goal is to give it to the world, because you need the people in the world to be spending money on it if you're going to make it a profitable business at the end of the day.
People, that's crazy. It's a
I
crazy
checked on
number.
I checked on this like 9 months ago. It's 4 billion,
Four.
but so now it's 6 billion out of 8 billion people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I walk down and I see homeless people take out their cell phone and use it.
Right. The smartphone.
Uh,
The smartphone. Yeah.
so you can only afford these things if you.
Remember what I was saying about homeless people today living better than the quote unquote wealthy of 1,000 years ago? Think about that. Like, the homeless person has a cell phone. Okay, that's how far we've come with this.
Uh, at a point where they don't work. Once they're really perfected, everybody can afford them. And so that's going to be true of all of these technologies. You don't have to be wealthy. I mean, wealthy only lasts.
And again, this is 2 years ago. So think about now, we got the AI in full throttle. It's ready, available to everybody. We have multiple things of AI. And right now, people aren't complaining about rich people having AI. People are complaining about the random people who has AI and is making all of these crazy AI videos. That's the biggest complaint right now.
You access.
Oh yeah, that and the major like movie companies and stuff using people's likeness and stuff. There's that too. But yeah, it's not a conversation about the rich and wealthy with AI at this point. So absolutely right. In real time, they are absolutely right.
Point where it doesn't really affect anything.
But that presumes that we continue to advance exponentially over that time.
Yes, but that is the reality.
And you never see that ending.
No, I mean, it's going to keep going.
And what are you basing that on? Part of it sounds like wishful thinking. I mean, I'm with you, but I'm just being devil's advocate here. Who is to say it should go on forever? The Roman Empire, they surely thought they were a forever thing. Hitler was ready to be the third dynasty. He was ready to last at least as long as the Greeks and the Romans, and his dynasty lasted 10 years. So where's your, is it just I'm queuing off of the past and projecting into the future, or do you have actually knowledge of what will happen in the future that will
Well, I mean, if you look at the price performance of computation, it's gone on. There's actually some periods prior to this, before we had computation, that continues its graph into the past. And it's continued. And people are saying, well, I'm not sure it's going to continue. Moore's law is ended. Every 5 years, people say Moore's law has ended. Moore's law is not a good name for this graph because only 10 of the 80 points have to do with tell. But it's continued, and we plan things that go beyond our current limitations because we need to overcome them.
But I've read papers that said you can't make the circuits any smaller because you run into quantum effects of adjacent.
That's not true. I mean, if you look at nanotechnology, for example, there's an analysis. If you created the ultimate computer, and it describes exactly how that would work, in a 1 liter size, it would be billions of times greater than today's computers. In fact, it would be greater than all the computation of all humans put together. So we can go way beyond what's where we are. It will reach a limit. I mean, you're right. There is a limit, but the limit's far beyond where we are today, and we can actually create a small computer that would be greater than all human beings together, and we can prove that as a reality.
So I hate to insult you by bringing this up, but just to take us out, we have to solicit your comment on whether we're all living in a simulation. Sorry to take you there, but you're dancing in the pond where people talk about this. So take us out with what you think is going on with us?
I mean, if you look at how physics works, it works by formula, and the world is kind of a computer, and so anything that happens in it is kind of a simulation of reality. The idea of us working in a simulation is some high school students in some other world create something.
Basement aliens, basement juvenile aliens programming us. Yes,
and they create something that simulates our world, and we're living in that world. But it's still reality, whether that happens or not. And you'd want to actually encourage those high school students not to shut down their simulation.
Don't be an idiot.
So,
don't make them shut us down.
Be,
don't pull the plug.
To be interesting. And I think having a singularity would be very interesting. So they'd want to watch that.
Very good. Good answer. Good answer. Okay. So we want to keep our simulator overlords entertained.
Yes. Hey, quit trying to solve all our problems. Keep the drama happening. We need more entertainment for our AI overlords who have created the simulation. Wait, that would make us the AI, right? That would make us the AI. Anyway, keep them happy. Keep them entertained. Don't pull the plug. Stay weird.
All right, Ray, I think that's all the time we have.
Okay, yep, all the time we have. So yeah, we're not going to end it right there. Oh man, so very interesting stuff. I really did enjoy this one. I really did. I believe he is super optimistic though. Ray is super optimistic because I don't know, throughout all of that, I kept thinking that, like with Neil playing devil advocate on this, I kept thinking about the different ways that it could all go wrong. And I don't know if that's a crutch on this or if that's a benefit, because by thinking about all the ways that it can go wrong, that increases the probability of you getting right, because now you're already thinking about pitfalls beforehand. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, it makes you a little nervous sometimes. You think about, like, okay, are we really going to make it that far, or is something going to happen? Or do we really want to trust certain things? You know, like, I don't know if I could trust somebody trying to plug nanobots into my brain to try to connect me to some Wi-Fi around the world. You know, and there's a number of things that people would be in fear of about that. From how could this cause me some kind of brain damage, to could some super genius hack my brain and turn me into their servant? Like, there's all kinds of different paranoias that come out about that. And so it's really just going to be, what are going to be the hurdles that we run into as we get further to that point. Same thing with AI. We pretty much have AI here. Like I said, this video is 2 years old. So with their conversation, AI wasn't exactly where it's at now. But now that we see where it's at now, you know, they're absolutely right. It's not something that's dominated by the rich. It's something that's being dominated by a lot of industries that you can kind of, you know, consider the rich if you want to, but they're not individual people, they're corporations. But even the same thing, what they're doing is that they're giving it to the people so that the people can use it, because they got to make a profit somewhere, spending all this money on making this AI possible, you know? So they have to have a support system, which is the customer. So there's a lot of factors in here. You know, his idealism is the best case scenario. So with him being so good at making predictions, I would hope that he's going to be right about everything that he says, because true optimist, best case scenario right here. But there's always those factors of little things that can happen between people who want to reject technology and just want to have us go backwards and everything. And not to say that that would halt humanity completely, because as we see, we as a species, we tend to bounce back. But I'm so much thinking about this generation plus the next couple afterwards. Like, I don't want that. I don't want the next couple generations getting screwed over because of a few idiots. And I guess that's where I'm at when I think about the pitfalls and everything. The pitfalls won't hold people down forever, but we do know that it can hold people down for like 1,000 years. We know that it can slow us down that much, you know. So it's like, let's try our best to avoid that. And I hope we manage to avoid that. And I hope that history does not repeat itself in that sense, and that we continue to progress. But at the same time, I would like to not to go too fast. Not to go too fast. Be cautious about the technology that you create, because at the same time, you don't want to invent something that turns around and bite you in the ass. You know what I'm saying? So that's pretty much my thoughts on the whole thing. I am hoping for the best case scenario as we progress further in technology, because I do love technology. I just hope that the people who are in the midst and, you know, in the front lines developing this stuff, the ones who are on the what they call the frontier of science and such, I hope that they're taking all the necessary precautions to try to avoid the pitfalls that we've already thought of and or predicted or put in media or stuff like that. Other than that, I'm all for us advancing. All right, y'all. So this one was great. This one was great. Talking about the future with a futurist, future optimist. Talking about everything from AI to nanobots to what we're going to see in the future and everything with technology and such. So what are your thoughts on this? Let me know. Put in the comments below. So, you know, this is going to be our full closeout. You know, go down in the comments and let me know what y'all thought about this one. Let me know what y'all thought about, you know, this whole thing, what you want to see me react to next. Hit that like button, share this video. If you want to support the platform, consider joining our Patreon. All right, and that is it for this. Today's stream was just one big reaction because there was a request to check this video out in particular. We've done it, and I'm out of here. I will see you guys tomorrow where we'll get a little bit more variety in. All right, so till next time, take care of yourselves. I'm out of here.